Hi, I am Jonathan Rosenfeld, and today on the Personal Injury Podcast, I am joined by attorney Sarah Salger at the Gorey Law Firm. And I am going to be talking with Sarah today about the 3M earplug lawsuits. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Sarah, first off, I want to get into sort of an update, jump right into the latest headlines here, and I want to sort of get some information from you about the status of the 3M earplug lawsuits in 2021. These cases have really taken off in terms of getting a lot of media attention and everything, and um, I want to talk with you about that. But I guess before we sort of even get to that, as a precursor, can you sort of tell us a little bit about the background in terms of the allegations made in these pending cases?
Yeah, absolutely. So the allegations are that 3M manufactured and sold what's called a dual-ended earplug, and that they sold those to the military and failed to warn them that it would not adequately protect the military service members' hearing. And so those allegations are that they knowingly sold them without the warning to the military, and then obviously the soldiers did not receive that warning either.
And right now we have a very large group of current and former military members who have joined this lawsuit. And where exactly is this lawsuit pending right now?
So an MDL was formed, and the entire MDL in the litigation is located in the Northern District of Florida. It's pending before District Judge Casey Rogers. And so that's kind of the entire litigation in the entire country has been consolidated into that MDL. There were a handful of cases filed in California initially, and that's where the mass tort was consolidated. Trials that have taken place thus far have all been in front of Judge Casey Rogers.
Sarah, some of these 3M earplug trials actually have proceeded, and some of these cases have resulted in plaintiffs' verdicts. But for those of us keeping score at home, can you give us a rundown of these recent cases and how they've played out before the jury in this MDL?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're seeing is that the verdicts, whether plaintiff or defense, are extremely fact sensitive. The liability story seems to be there against 3M, and it just comes down to the individual plaintiffs and what the facts are. There's been 3 trials to date, all in the MDL in Florida, in front of Judge Rogers. And the first trial was a consolidated trial, which means that 3 plaintiffs were tried at the exact same time. And that was a plaintiff's verdict that resulted in $7.2 million in damages total. The second trial was a single plaintiff that resulted in a defense verdict. However, that was a tinnitus only case, not a hearing loss case. And then the third trial was also a single plaintiff, but resulted in a plaintiff's verdict as well, with $1.7 million total damages in that case. And then there are additional trials set before Judge Rogers coming up in September and October of this year. And then she's starting to set into 2022 as well.
And these cases that are pending before Judge Rogers, can you give us an idea of how many cases there are at this point?
Well, so the way that she has been doing it is that she is, nationally, there are, hundreds of thousands of 3M cases pending. The way that Judge Rogers has been handling it is that she's tagging cases to be worked up for trial. Currently, she's just tagged an additional about 1,400 cases to begin case-specific workup. And that's kind of how she's been going through the docket, is taking them a group at a time. But nationally, it's expected that there are, into the hundreds of thousands of these cases.
The plaintiffs in these cases have, differing degrees or varying degrees of hearing loss and other types of tinnitus and other hearing problems. But can you sort of give us a little bit of a rundown of these? Because I know the damages in these cases in terms of the actual hearing loss can vary fairly drastically. What types of plaintiffs are you currently representing?
Yeah, so we represent both plaintiffs with hearing loss and with tinnitus. When we're looking at a potential case, kind of the criteria that we're looking for is, did they serve in the military between the years that we're using is 2003 to 2015? Did they wear the dual-ended combat arm plug version 2, which is the yellow and olive green, and is this kind of subject of this litigation? We look for a formal diagnosis of either hearing loss or tinnitus. And when I say tinnitus, that is essentially like the ring, it's a ringing of the ears or a ringing sound, not actual hearing loss. We prefer an honorable discharge if we're looking at a case to take, and then that there is no hearing loss or tinnitus prior to the use of the combat arms earplug. And then one other kind of qualifier is that they cannot have been diagnosed with Meniere's disease. So that's kind of just, every case is fairly fact specific and case specific. That's kind of our overarching, this is what we're looking at. So as far as hearing loss and tinnitus are going to be the two main damages that we're handling.
Okay. Now, in any type of case, any type of personal injury case, one of the factors that lawyers look at is the first thing, that I look at in a lot of cases is, hey, when did this thing happen? When do we have to get the lawsuit filed? What exactly is the statute of limitations? And obviously, take everything with a grain of salt. When I say statute of limitations, obviously, we're not giving a specific time frame here. Obviously you have to consult with an attorney. But what exactly, in terms of a time frame for the statute of limitations, the time to file a case, are you looking at? How are you sort of evaluating it with these 3M cases?
Yeah, so like I said, we're looking for people who use them between that 2003 to 2015 time period. As far as the statute of limitations, I know I sound like a broken record. It's going to be very case specific determination. It's going to depend on where they wore the earplugs, when they wore it, and when the injury occurred. So essentially when they knew they had a claim. Now, this isn't a class action. It's an individual lawsuit. It's in an MDL. So we recommend you contact an attorney as soon as possible because your clock will start ticking. It's not a class action. You can wait until it's ready and then submit a claim. Because it is going to depend on, we look through their medical records to see if doctors have told them that they have hearing loss or they have tinnitus and when that occurred. So it's something for each particular plaintiff. We look through and determine what that plaintiff's statute of limitations will be.
So bottom line is, if in doubt, talk to an attorney who has experience with these cases.
Absolutely.
If someone's watching this, or if someone has a family member who may have been serving in the military and has some hearing loss, can they still join this litigation, this lawsuit? Is there still time to do so? Obviously, it depends on their circumstance, but if someone's watching this, can they contact an attorney and start moving forward with the case?
Yes, absolutely. It's always, you always want to err on the side of caution, call, see if you have a case. We'll go through those factors for each particular plaintiff and figure out if their statute is still good. But this is definitely a litigation that is still ongoing and that plaintiffs are still able to get involved with if they choose. So we would recommend you reach out as soon as possible and go through and see if there may be some compensation available.
That's great advice. Sarah, I want to move on and talk with you a little bit about the damages in these cases and, the settlements, if any, that are out there. If you look at the traffic on the internet, when it comes to 3M searches, you really can't do a search and for 3M earplugs without seeing what is the settlement. Ultimately, in every civil case, everything's really about dollars and cents. And in these cases, we're seeing, we've seen some very substantial verdicts. But right now, I want to talk with you about a potential payout on these cases. A lot of people are looking for information in this respect, and I just wanted to get some information from you. Um, Now, the allegations, we've talked about in terms of hearing loss and tinnitus, um, but are any of these cases, other than the ones that have gone to trial as of today's date, have there been any settlements in these cases?
Not that I'm aware of. The first three trials and verdicts in two of them are the first cases that I'm aware of that there's been a verdict, that there has not been a settlement in these. As I've said, the judge in Florida is continuing to set additional trials to try to move forward to see what are the values of these claims. And because it's not a class action, the values of the claims are going to differ in the sense that, hearing loss and tinnitus are two different damages and injuries. And, case by case, some people may have a much more extensive hearing loss than others. So it is definitely going to be something that as these cases continue to be tried, that in order to get to a resolution, it's going to take extensive review on both sides of the medical records and of each individual plaintiff or each individual claims damage to determine what these should settle for.
Um, Before we even go on further, I want to just, for those of us listening at home, can you give us a little bit of an explanation of what the difference between a class action versus a MDL is with respect to, these cases and really for any other type of case that may be pending in an MDL? What exactly is the difference between the two?
Yeah, so a class action, if a class action is filed, other than the class representatives or the plaintiffs that filed the case, every person that settles that case is going to receive the same award. It's determined what the award will be, and each plaintiff or each class, member of the class will receive the same amount. The way that an MDL is different is that these are still individual lawsuits. You're still looking at individual damages to each plaintiff and accepting the fact that not every plaintiff has the same damages. So when I say this is an MDL, an individual case, not a class action, not every plaintiff is likely going to receive the same amount of money, dependent on their damages.
Fair enough. Now, one of the issues in these cases in terms of damages is, if we have a soldier come into a courtroom here,
Mhm.
they may walk in and they may look, perfectly fine. Um, Whereas in other types of personal injury cases, if, catastrophic injury cases where someone may be hit by a car or something, you can take a picture of their leg if they break their leg, and you can show the picture of the hardware to a jury. In these 3M cases, how exactly are you trying to convey the extent of the damages to a jury and to the defense attorneys? How exactly, what factors, I guess, are you looking at in terms of the damages, and sort of how are you trying to convey that to the decision makers in the case?
Well, and a lot of that portion of the case is left up to the experts. Each side has to have their experts. If you have somebody with hearing loss, you show their audiograms to show how extensive their loss is. Obviously, if somebody has hearing loss, they may come into the courtroom wearing hearing aids or a cochlear implant, and you can see that there's a damage. But with tinnitus or with a hearing loss that hasn't gotten to that point, a jury's not going to be able to see that. So we have to use, our experts or the various ENTs to show the loss on an audiogram or on other, medical kind of diagnostic review.
Gotcha. Um, what exactly, in terms of the day-to-day impact on someone's life, are you seeing with soldiers who may have a hearing loss from these 3M uh, earplug devices? How is this impacting people sort of across the board in terms of their family and work life?
Well, a lot of the clients that we're seeing, these are younger individuals, individuals that but for their service and but for wearing these defective earplugs would not be losing their hearing at this point in their life. So you have, the individuals who have actual hearing loss that they have had to get hearing aids, at a younger age when you wouldn't normally need them, get cochlear implants. With tinnitus, what I talked about is, ringing in the ears. It can be extremely bothersome, even though it may not need hearing aids. It may not need the surgery to have an implant. It can be persistent or intermittent, and it can change over time. It can cause issues with sleeping. We've seen it cause depression, and can lead to difficulties with people's work life and family life, and dealing with this kind of persistent ringing in their ears.
As someone who has difficulty sleeping, I can certainly sympathize with these people. But jokes aside, this really does impact really every aspect of a person's life, and there really is no there's no break essentially from some of these conditions. So again, if someone is watching this, or if they have a family member who is watching this, we'll put your information in the podcast information. But this is really, now is the time to reach out to an attorney who is handling these cases, who does have this particular experience. Sarah, I really want to thank you for your time today, and thank you for all your insight and expertise. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.